The answer to this question is not Kirby Smart. Which coaches are coming into the 2023 season? By the way, you can pick up our 2023 preview. We don't talk about this particular in there, but if you get the book Double Dogs, Georgia's National Championship, you get our 2023 preview, which has something from all three of us in there. Who do you think's on the hottest seat coming into this thing? And we're talking all of college football, Matt, or just the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking in the SEC, there's a lot of new coaches, a lot of fresh faces still, guys who aren't doing too particularly well, but they've barely been there, so it's tough to put them on the hot seat. But, college football, it's a win right now sport, so there have to be guys on the hot seat. The easy one is Jimbo Fisher,
Yeah.
Who's been on the hot seat, since Knob, I think, over there. But eventually he's got to go. I don't know the contract details in front of me. I know they have to pay him a lot of money, but he's got to go eventually if they want to turn that around. But I'm thinking across the country, Brent Venables is a guy that comes to mind. He still hasn't been there very long, but he's got to start winning. Ryan Day's not going anywhere.
Hold on, because you hit one exactly, and I think Ryan. Well, let's go to Matt and then straight to Ryan. Who's in hotter a situation? Because they both got there the same year. Is it Brent Venables or Billy Napier at Florida?
Probably Billy Napier.
Probably Billy. I agree, but it's not good, Ryan. Neither of those situations is good.
Yeah, I'd lean Billy just because. I mean, well, it's different because Oklahoma's joining the SEC. But if that wasn't happening, then we know that it's more difficult to win in the SEC than it is in the Big 12. Right. And so there's more pressure to find the right guy quicker at a program like Florida than there is to find it at Oklahoma. Jimbo was going to be my quick answer as well. They're paying him $95 million guaranteed, I think is the number. I think that's his guaranteed money.
Correct.
Jim Harbaugh has saved his job.
Yes.
For the foreseeable future. So I wouldn't throw him in there. I don't think Ryan Day is on the hot seat. I don't think that's the right way to put it.
What is he on?
His seat's warm.
Is that crazy?
If you got a car seat heater, it's got 3 modes. He's on the lowest mode.
Okay, he's 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, your reaction is saying something. Go ahead.
I think he could bring a national title to Ohio State. I wouldn't put him on the hot seat at all. I know people are frustrated with him up there, but they came pretty damn close to winning it all. All they had to do is put a fourth quarter together against Georgia, and they would beat TCU as well, and they would have won the whole thing. But, Lincoln Riley can't lose to Tulane again, but he's, just got there. Hard to put him on the hot seat.
Is that a challenge?
But I would like to see him lose to Tulane again, but he's got to get to not lose to Utah and get to a college football playoff soon. I think he's got a lot of talent there. James Franklin, I think they're okay with being good. They don't mind not being great. So I don't know if he's on the hot seat or not. They've kind of plateaued. Dabo's not going anywhere. Shane Beamer's not going anywhere. Josh Heupel's not going anywhere. Hugh Freeze just got to Auburn. Norvell seems to know what he's doing at Florida State.
Well, that's a curious one, though. Who is in position to become Norvell, which is to say, went from a little bit warm to, okay, you're in good shape. I mean, is that I think Shane Beamer has it. I do not think this will happen. I think Shane Beamer has got some momentum. Don't you think, though, Matt, that loss to Notre Dame was not a great loss? But he's in such good position because, very exclusively, I would say, because of the Clemson win. But more than that, the Tennessee win. I mean, those two things really propelled him moving forward. He's gone into both of his off seasons with good wins that matter to the Carolina people, because they beat North Carolina going into 22, and then they just came out of this thing going into 23 with the wins over Tennessee and Clemson.
Yeah, I think you said it. When you beat Clemson, you're in a great standing there. If you could beat them twice, they might go ahead and give you a statue. But
you buy that, though?
We'll see. I'm not sure Clemson's in such a great spot right now. But this is a big year for Carolina. Can they keep this momentum, or are they going to be classic Carolina and go up and down, Jekyll and Hyde throughout the season next year and lose 2 games that they shouldn't, which I could totally see.
Ryan?
What What's the
Will
question?
Carolina do what they normally do, which is go up and down the whole time?
Yeah, I think that they have a slight improve. What did they finish last year with, 5 or 4 or 5 losses?
8-5, I think.
I could see a 9-4 season. I think that's totally real. I think that's possible.
It's tough.
Nine and four. 9-4.
They could
That's a
do that.
great season.
That would be
Yeah,
unbelievable for them.
I think that's in their wheelhouse for this coming season. I like what Shane Beamer's doing over there. He's corny, but that's kind of what they need, I guess. I want to talk about a different name though.
Okay.
Sarkisian. Where are we at with him?
That's a good.
Because I think that getting Arch Manning cooled his seat down a little bit, just because of the attention and everything.
You got to win.
Well, if you can't develop him, it's going to get even hotter.
Well, exactly. I think it momentarily cooled his seat down a
Well,
little bit.
them whipping Oklahoma's ass 49-0 mattered.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt. What were you gonna say?
This will be his third season. Is that correct?
I think so.
Still a little too early for hot seat noise unless they'll go out and lose 4 or 5 games. Then he's 100% on the hot seat. But, I mean, you've got a fresh Dan Lanning in Oregon, Brian Kelly at LSU, just a lot, nationally, a lot of young coaches, not really young, but new, fresh coaches who are at these programs for 2 to 3 years still. So, just trying to think.
But if you're Florida, excuse me, Texas, you've got a probable loss at Alabama. And you've not proven that you can run they play Houston this year on the road. I mean, they could lose that game.
Tricky.
I don't know that they'll lose that game. That's in the Big 12. I mean, there's some real whack job. They gotta go to Houston. They play BYU. They can lose both those games. Texas. I mean, they have proven nothing over these last few. I'm not sure if they've lost to every member of the Big 12 in the last 2 seasons, last 3 seasons. I think they have lost to all of them, or maybe all but one, because they lost to Kansas. And so they've really, I think Sarkisian is a little bit more hot water perhaps than people will say. Y'all, I mean, they should totally be 2-1 going into the Big 12. They're not going to lose to Rice, and then they host Wyoming. They're going to lose to Alabama, you would imagine. So, and then they get into this, Baylor, Kansas. They go play at Baylor, totally can lose that game. They play Kansas, and then they play Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. They go to Houston. They host BYU. They play Kansas State. They can lose all 3 of those games. They play at TCU. Did I say BYU? There's a lot of letters here. And then they close with at Iowa State, a game they can lose. And then they host Texas Tech, which I'm not so sure they'd lose that one.
Well, I think the notion around it is that they're supposed to take this step forward this season. And I agree. I do think they're going to take a step forward. I just don't know if that step's going to be as big as maybe some other people think. But they come in and it's similar to last year, or they lose 1 or 2 of those games they're really not supposed to. I think his seat's very high. And I think that the Sarkisian experiment didn't – he was supposed to come in and be this offensive guru, and I just don't know that we've seen that quite yet.
I think if you're South Carolina, Matt, if you can just get to November, you're going to be doing okay. I mean, if you get to November with 5 wins, and you close with Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky before you host Clemson. I mean, there's 4 games in a row, man, where they're gonna that's what Carolina could do in theory. I look. Shane Beamer, God bless him. He's doing. If they open the season going 3-1, and they beat Carolina, they beat Furman, which they'll do, and then they they lose to Georgia in a respectable fashion. They beat Mississippi State. The middle part of their schedule is pretty tough: Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Maybe Ryan's not so far from being right here. I mean, because Furman, you should beat Furman, Mississippi State. You should probably beat the Gators at home. You should beat Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. That's 6 wins. Those are home games, most of those. If you can win 3 other ones, I mean, can you really buy them beating Clemson, though, man?
I think Clemson's a big question mark for me right now. So I think it's a little too early to say. It would maybe surprise me a little bit, but they did last year. And I don't think Clemson's going to be a whole lot better this year. So I could see it happening. But you have to have realistic expectations, and those people know how tough the schedule is every year. They're not expecting to go out and win the East. They just want you to beat Kentucky consistently and beat Clemson and fight with Georgia and beat Florida and play with Tennessee.
They didn't do any of those things except the Tennessee thing that you just said.
Right. But I think that's where their mind's at. Let's go out and beat the teams that, we feel like we can and beat Clemson, maybe not consistently. I think that's,
sometimes.
Asking too much, but sometimes, yeah. But I think Penn State is a real question mark for me every year. Like, are they ever going to get to the level of Michigan and Penn State? I mean, this is supposed to be some all-time program that hasn't won anything since the mid-'80s, and they're just content with James Franklin and being an 8-9 win program, and they're cool with that. And I'm just thinking, if you're Penn State, don't you want to get past Ohio State and get past Michigan eventually? I mean, what are we doing here? But
Ryan, what are they doing?
I feel like I've gone on my whole Penn State rant before.
Oh, okay.
I do think their history's overrated, and I don't. I mean, they've competed.
The child rape, or maybe I should cut that part out.
I'm not.
The lack of accountability for decades.
So I also have a big question mark with Clemson this coming season. I don't know.
All right.
I don't know what to think of Clemson either. I don't know if they're gonna regress. I don't know if they're the same. Like, as far as all of these big name teams, that's the one that I'm not sure where to place them right now.
A lot of people are really selling them. I mean, there's, the problem with them is that you're just not talking about an overly challenging schedule. Now it's a little more difficult than it has been in the past because they've got Notre Dame, but it's not. They open with Duke on a Monday, I think it is. They open with Duke on Labor Day. And then they got Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, and then right into what will be a really, 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 really important game against Florida State at home. Now they got to go to Syracuse. They almost lost. They probably should have lost to Syracuse this past year. They host Wake Forest, a team that they had to beat on the last play of the game. They play Miami. I got to see it from Miami. I don't buy that. And then NC State. Notre Dame, Georgia Tech's shouldn't give them trouble. I don't know. This is not a great schedule for them, mainly because they're not what they were, Matt.
What, the Tigers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if Cade Klubnik is not the guy, they could be in some real trouble this year. I think North Carolina is a team who could be in the last year of their head coach. Mac Brown, I think, turns 106 this year.
Something like that.
I don't think he's going to be coaching very long, but they're a team that I think could mix something up. But I can't even name the head coach at Virginia Tech right now. Is it still what's his face?
They fired that.
It's still
guy.
What's his face? Yeah.
He doesn't matter.
What's his face? Yeah.
Hold on. Back to Penn State. Back to Penn State because back to Penn State because they legitimately could be a power at some stage. You would think. But, here's James Franklin going backwards. 11-2, 7-6, 4-5, 11-2, 9-4, 11-2, 11-3, 7-6, 7-6. So that's his time at Penn State. Very up and down. Half the seasons ranked in the top 20. Well, 4 seasons ranked in the top 10. 4 seasons not even ranked to conclude the year. And 1 year where they got their ass whipped by Kentucky in the Citrus Bowl. If you like, I feel like James Frank. Well, first of all, the guy's a turd. But I feel like a lot of people, if you like him, you think they're in good shape. If you don't, you don't. But I don't. There's nothing spectacular here. I think the job Jim Harbaugh has done is more impressive than we will admit, or people will admit. I mean, they're the only other team besides Georgia. There are 2 teams in the country who have played in the college football playoff the last 2 years. Georgia and Michigan. That's it. Not Alabama, not Clemson, not SC, not Ohio State. It's been Georgia and Michigan. Penn State's not even played in the playoff. Florida's not played in the playoff. Miami, Tennessee, if you want to put them in. SC has not played in the playoff. There's so many teams that have not gotten there. Which of the not gotten theirs, Ryan, get over the hump and actually get into the playoff this year?
SC.
Okay.
I think this entire offseason I've thought that USC will be one of those 4 teams. I don't know who the fourth team. I feel confident
Oh, who
about
are your four?
I think Georgia will make the playoff again. I think that one of the Big Ten schools, I'm just not sure, between Michigan and Ohio State, I think one of them will make it. And I think USC will. It's the fourth team that I haven't quite decided yet. But I think their roster, I think, is slightly better than it was last year. You get a whole nother year of Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley development together. I mean, he's the most talented quarterback in the country.
You
And
said Georgia, SC, Alabama in a Big Ten. I missed the.
Georgia, SC, a Big Ten. I'm not quite sure who the fourth is yet.
Oh, okay. You didn't say anybody.
But that's kind of what I've decided so far.
All right, Matt. Who are you? Go
I think
ahead.
it, man. I think that they could totally go undefeated, and be 13-0 heading into that thing.
SC.
Yeah.
Matt, who you got in your four?
I don't know yet, but I think I've got two sleepers
Okay.
that have been there before. I think Florida State is my sleeper. And I think Oregon, second year under Dan Lanning, I think the defense is going to be better. Bo Nix coming back for his 8th year or something like that. I think they could be really good, and I think they could give USC's offense a little more, trouble than people are giving them credit for. So I think Oregon was really good last year. They got blown out by Georgia, and they lost a couple games late when Georgia played Kentucky. They lost to whoever. That was disappointing.
The Oregon State loss was bad.
Yeah, but Oregon State was actually
No, they were
better than we all thought. But I do think they hit the transfer portal well, returning quarterback. The defense should be improved. I think Oregon's a sleeper because I'm still not sure if Utah is the caliber of team that can win that conference again. And I know a lot of people like Ryan think USC should be really good. So Oregon's my sleeper. And if, Clemson doesn't get it together, I do think this could be Florida State's year where they get over the hump and maybe win the ACC. If they don't slip up, I love the quarterback. They really added a lot from the transfer portal as well. Sleeper team for me that might impress a lot of people and maybe sneak into that Final Four.
Go ahead, Ryan. I thought you were going to say something, Ryan.
Yeah, I think the other sleeper team that I've seen on lists and predictions to make the playoff is Washington in the Pac-12. I've seen people are really high on Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a lot of Washington in the last couple of years, I think, than I did the previous couple of years, but
he can sling it.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, but it's the same sentiment with Utah, and you got Cameron Rising and a foundation there. But I don't know if either of those teams are going to be quite as good as Oregon and USC out of that conference.
This conversation, though, the Pac-12 is probably going to be better than the ACC, and I don't know that you can always say that. The top-tier ACC schools, probably just Clemson and Florida State. I don't know that they would really... I mean, who would win between USC and Clemson?
I think USC would win that game.
I might give USC the
because
edge.
of the deficiency of Clemson's offense, and it would not be that big of a deal against how bad SC's defense is. Is that what you're saying? Because Clemson's defense
They have Bear Alexander, man. What are you talking about?
Clemson's. I'm going to ignore that comment. Clemson's defense is pretty good. How would they match up with Caleb Williams playing 7-on-7? See, that's.
I don't know if they have a complete defense. They've got pieces and they've got guys. I don't know if they've got 11 really good players.
Are you talking about Clemson or SC?
Clemson.
Okay, yeah. They definitely. I mean, if you're Florida State and you don't take advantage of this right now, shame on you.
Disappointing.